All right, there we go. Got it all apart and brushed off. There were a lot of spiders living in there. It's pretty dusty, but here's the backside of the baffle. Kind of odd the way that it was constructed with these like routed and glued in like solid wood strips to hold the side panels on. So I don't know what I'm going to end up doing with that. I think what is probably going to have to happen is figure out what I'm going to do with this baffle. I'm definitely going to have to strip off this grill cloth, so remove these staples and then see where we're at from there. But figure out how we're going to chop down this this baffle board, remount the grill cloth, and then also figure out what to do with these side panel pieces, because eventually I think structurally everything is going to be built around the baffle and then these two hardwood pieces. The speaker looks great. I hadn't seen the cone before this except through the grill cloth, but yeah, it looks very, very good condition for being as old as it is. So goodbye. Okay, I'm back here with this amp cabinet, and you can see I've taken it down a little bit further, kind of stripped the grill cloth off of the baffle and removed the supporting screws. So I've got a good idea of how this build is going to come together. Basically, I'm going to use the original construction method. We're going to have these hardwood panels top and bottom, and but instead of having the side pieces being this angled corner type construction, we're going to go straight down, so it'll be like a rectangular box, and then I'll cut off this angled portion, so this will be flat and much shallower, so probably about 10 inches deep in this case. And so I'll also come up maybe about 5 inches from the bottom. It's a little too tall, there's a lot of dead space on the bottom. And then what I'm going to do with the amp chassis here is this will mount onto a vertical shelf, so maybe like a 3/4 inch ply shelf that just sits horizontally here. The amp will sit here, and the tubes will actually have some nice ventilation. This was a hole cut out in the baffle originally for a high end, like a horn. So we'll leave that in there, leave that covered with grill cloth, and there will be some nice airflow over the top of the chassis for the tubes. Yeah, so I'm going to have to do a lot of fab on these top and bottom hardwood pieces, and then there's a lot of fab that needs to happen on the baffle, and then I have to actually make the side pieces. And then after that's all done, there will probably be some back panels that I'll have to make to enclose everything, just so it's not you know, a giant open hole in the back of the cabinet here. But I think that's a plan. You know, this is similar to, I've got a trainer, an old 1970s YGM3 that is built very similar to this, with this shelf on top of the lower speaker cabinet. So seems to work well. I'll probably put casters on this too. Just drill them into this bottom panel here. Yeah, on to fabrication. All right, here we are. Almost ready to put this cabinet back together. You can see I've cut a lot of the panels down. I've basically cut the angle off of the back side of the cabinet. I've also shortened everything by about 4 inches. I've reshaped the side panels, and then I've made this shelf, which eventually will be bolted in here to the baffle and the side pieces, and that is where the amp will sit. So the chassis gets bolted in there, and then a cable gets fed through to the speaker through the bottom of this panel somewhere. I'm almost ready to kind of bolt everything back together, or at least kind of drill and glue the supports in, for which everything will be joined to. But before this kind of finally goes back together in final form, the grill cloth will have to be put back on. So almost there, maybe a few more days. I made a complete mess, as you can see. My porch is covered in wood bits. I cut everything with a jigsaw, which was probably a bad idea. Not really capable of making super nice straight cuts, so if you decide to do something with this, I highly recommend like a skill saw, circular saw, or some kind of table saw with a more rigid blade. Alright, here we go. I've finished putting in all the supports for this shelf, and then the back panel supports on the sides. These are wood screw and glue attached, so nice and sturdy. You can see I put the speaker in there just for size reference. And then, of course, as I said before, the amp will sit in this shelf. It looks like it's coming together pretty well. From here, I just need to wait for everything to dry up, reattach the grill cloth on the sides, put some T-nuts in for the speaker mounts, put the grill cloth back on, and then once the grill cloth is there, then I can start screwing everything together. I also need to kind of finish up these edges. It doesn't quite look normal with the back edges unfinished, but we'll see. I may leave it like that or try and do something with it, but yeah, getting close. Cap is almost done, and then we can move on to doing the actual electronic assembly. Okay, welcome back. Here we go. We've finished, well, kind of 90% finished this amp cabinet. You can see we've pretty much just chopped the back off, made the sides square instead of that original triangular shape. I've mocked it up with, you can see the amp chassis as it's going to sit in here. Eventually it will be bolted down to this shelf, but right now it just kind of moves in and out. That's probably where it's going to sit. You have to remember there's going to be knobs on this front panel, and then also a jack that comes out, so probably right about there in dead center. This looks good. I use brass upholstery tacks to kind of give it that finished look on the edges. I'm painting up some back panels right now for this, which are just solid poplar strips that will then get bolted onto these back supports. Let's see here. I refinished this edge that was cut. So this is just like Minwax polyurethane with stain. Looks okay. It matches pretty well in color though. But paste wax on the top. And you can see the sides look pretty decent. The grill cloth is kind of stiff, so it doesn't want to crease. You can kind of see it's sticking out a little bit. It'll crease over time. It's just a kind of a stiff, thick kind of grill cloth. And this looks pretty good. So definitely shorter. I don't know if I'm gonna actually be able to end up using these casters that I put on here. I mean, they were only 20 bucks, but they moved the rotational point of the chassis too close to the center, so it makes it really prone to tipping over. So I'll probably, you can see it's kind of this narrow, skinny shape, so not super stable. And it makes me nervous because the tubes are up here at the top, so if it falls over, they're going to see quite a bit of force and probably end up breaking some stuff. So I think I'll probably end up putting rubber feet back on this, just to prevent that from falling over. Cool, yeah, it looks great. So cabinet pretty much done, besides these back panels, and then drilling holes for this chassis. But the next step will be gutting this amp and then doing a layout for the 6G3 amp in here, and then making sure I have all those parts, and then
constructing the board and putting this amp together.